Welcome to the videocast, A Regenerative Future. This is a videocast where we dig deeper into the solutions of how we together can create a more regenerative world. My name is Sirine Fodstad, and here I invite inspiring guests who all have in common that they act on the solutions for the future to create an even better world for all of us. So get ready to be inspired and get tons of concrete advices on how you can contribute. Today's inspiring guest is a true people person with a long international background. She's been abroad 17 years and been working in 7 different countries and are now one of the selected female partners in BCG, where she actually lead people and organization practice. So it's a pleasure to welcome Sirine Fodstad to the videocast. Welcome, Sirine.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I have really been looking forward to joining you on the videocast. I've been planning both, what I wanted to talk about, and we've discussed, and then I've also planned my outfit for a very long time. So this is exciting to be part of also something that's new to me, a videocast, a podcast, but the opportunity to also see people when you listen to it. So I think it's a great opportunity to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And we are the lucky ones here. And I maybe want to touch upon some of your, you call it maybe superpowers. I would maybe call it your OCDs or something. But coming up to this videocast, it was really impressive. You were really detailed in your planning, preparing, and you just wanted this to kind of be the best value for the listeners, basically. And I think that is something that I feel define you also in your work and how you treat your friends and in everything you do. Where did that come from?
Now, I think that, the preparation, I think there's definitely, there's something about having an OCD or feeling in control and then feeling that you're actually going to create and to add value, right? So you want to do something that's meaningful. And I have to say, I have to add, when I listen to your other videocasts that you've done with, the people that you have interviewed, one person stood out to me, Sirine Fodstad from Red Cross. And she had such a really good way of explaining how you do get across a meaningful and something that's insightful message to people, and how you actually package it and make sure that people understand and they learn and take something away from what you deliver, either on stage or in the videocast. And that really kind of it felt, was heartfelt to me. I felt like that's what I want to do. I want to say something that people can learn from. I want to share something. I want to be meaningful. I think that's where it comes from.
I love that. And that sets a good tone for the rest of the conversation. And I really then want to touch on your burning flames in the background there, the nice fireplace. And then it feels also that you have a burning passion for people, since you already now talk about, I want to focus on the value I can bring to the people out there. Most people, or many people that comes on kind of podcasts or videocasts or whatever, they're more concerned about, this is what I want to talk about, and not necessarily so conscious about the value they bring. So what have made you this kind of really, really big pumping heart for people?
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting, right? I think when I look back at my own journey, I think I've always been a people person. People who know me, they will definitely say I've been a people person. I like to be in front of people. I'm extremely extrovert. I like to talk a lot. I also like to listen a lot, and I like to be in interaction with people. But, when I looked at the heading and the kind of, broad scope of, what you're doing in your videocasts, and thought about generative leadership, that kind of has really given me a language to talk about how I am as a person and as a leader. Because for me, the generative leadership, and I'll go straight into that because I think it will answer your question as well. It's about 3 things, right? It's about, do you lead with your head? Do you lead with your hands? Or do you lead with your heart? And I want to spend, just a couple of seconds on each. I think people who lead with their head, they're very visionary. They're extremely kind of able to see a long journey and to tell the organization or the team that they lead where we're heading and, you know, what I see in the future and how we're going to get there. The people who lead with their hands, they're very focused on doing stuff and executing and getting the team behind them and delivering value, delivering projects, delivering on the journey that we're on. And people who lead with their heart, they're most about creating enthusiasm, seeing people, empowering people, coaching, developing people to be the best that they can be and see people. And that's me, for sure. And I think it was so interesting when I heard, you know, people who are talking about generative leadership, and ask yourself, and if all the people who listen to this video cast as well will ask themselves, you know, ask yourselves, are you a person who lead with your head or your hands or your heart? What about you, Chris? Which one would you pick?
Yeah, what I liked with your previous answer was that you said, I'm good at talking a lot, and I love that, but I'm also a good listener. So I would say I would probably lead mostly with my heart, but then I'm also really prepared to kind of take up my sleeves and be part of the change and do the things. Yeah. And then I think the directional part is also something that I think is really important. So I would say in the beginning of a project or something that we need to transform, really clear and simplified direction. Yeah. Then mostly focused on getting the hearts with me, and then willing to walk that journey with kind of taking some dirty work and doing it together. So I think the combination. But since you say leading with your heart, I think also that's maybe where my focus is most, because it's been lacking a lot in leadership in the world, and especially in the statistics we see on suicide rate, mental health, people not fitting in, discrimination, basically that everybody feel a sense of belonging, feeling safe, can be themselves. I think that's where we really have a big improvement and a gap in today's both society, but also workplaces.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, we'll definitely touch on inclusion and also I'd like to talk about exclusion, because that's the kind of actively are doing. We'd like to include people, but then we actually exclude them. But you triggered a point as well that I wanted to make, which is I read in DN, the newspaper in Norway, one of my friends, actually, she's a professor at the University of Stavanger, Mari Rege, and she writes on Fridays in DN. And she had this article where she said that they have done a study that has just been published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, where they have done 3,000 employees and leaders and looked at them.
I saw that. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And have studied, they've trained them in social competency. So how to create better conversations, how to create better relations at work. And then when they tested it over time, and they had the control group and the people who hadn't been part of the training, they saw a clear correlation of less people leaving if the leaders had been trained in social interaction and social competency. And I love that we're now starting to get research, not just saying that that's great and we should be focusing on it, but we get something tangible that can actually lead to the bottom line, and that we can also help explain why this is so important. It has a direct correlation on the cost of people leaving, intangible and monetary.
Yeah. But then I'm also a bit triggered by that, because what I usually find is I talked to Lars Erik Lund, who also talked about that last week. And he was basically saying that diversity and inclusion can be a big business case and a good business case. But do we need to know that there's numbers behind, or can we sometimes also agree this is the right thing to do? Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what kind of annoys the out of me sometimes is that we're looking for the next study to confirm, the next study to confirm, the next study to confirm. Like, to treat people right, to not discriminate, to get everybody on board, to release their full potential. I don't care if research supports that or not.
Yeah.
Of course, we should make people live long, happy, fulfilling lives, also at the workplace, no matter what the research says. And we can't wait.
No, I agree. I could, you're preaching to the
to the choir. Yeah.
Absolutely. However, I do think that, in the business context, and especially when it comes down to let's put the money where your mouth is. So let's actually talk about how we're going to make this happen in the business. When it comes to it, you need a budget, you need money to do this. And I do think that we talk too little about the cost of diversity and inclusion, because it's easy to stand on a stage and be the kind of good messenger. And I'm not talking about you and me in particular, but just stand on stage, but me as well, on behalf of organizations and saying, we want to do this. Of course, this is, it's a no-brainer. We need to do diversity and inclusion. And then it comes to actually putting things in place in the organization that enables you to do that. So it starts with the recruitment. It starts with having, if it's physical disabilities, you might need some special equipment. If it's mental, that you need to deal with the mental awareness, or you have a different requirement and a different need. Maybe you need more quiet zones. You need in quiet rooms. There are costs attached to it. If you need to include people who are non-native Norwegian speakers, are you then going to change all your IT systems, all your processes, all the language of how you speak? It has an intrinsic cost, right? And I think that's okay. It's just that we just need to talk about it so that we also get the budget to go with it.
Yeah. I think you're partly right. But
Sorry?
then I think you're partly right.
Yeah.
But then that's a bit, to me, adapting to the reality that we live. Yeah. And I try to stretch towards, and I'm not saying that you're not doing it, because I know you are doing it.
No, it's fine. I get it.
Also trying to stretch towards the future that we want to live in. And then I see working with diversity and inclusion, you can do so much without money.
For sure.
For those who argue with but we need money and resources, show me that you have done everything that can be done without money first.
Yeah.
Because then I think you will see, okay, my people thrive so well, so maybe I don't even need to spit in money. Because I'm so sick and tired of the excuses that we say, diversity and inclusion will take a long time. And that reminds me of, let's not talk about diversity and inclusion. I would wish we could kill diversity as a term.
You want to talk about inclusion?
No, let's call it everyone and inclusion.
Yeah, everyone. I agree. Everyone.
Diversity is excluding.
Yeah, I agree. It's so funny, isn't it? It's kind
E and I is the new term. Let's term it E and I, everyone and inclusion.
Yeah, because and I think that, in general, I think we do have inclusive intentions, right? So very few people who won't really be on that bandwagon, who don't support, let's say, the cause, because I feel it's a cause and we need to be there. And I've been working on this for years, also before it was the buzzword and before everybody wanted to be kind of, this is important. But I love that we have a language. I love that we have, that we can call it something that people actually understand, and they get the language to talk about it much more. So I enjoy that. However, I think that, the ability to see beyond what's within your kind of realm. So you're a visionary. So coming back to the generative, definitely you're a visionary. You lead with your heart for sure, but, you see far ahead, and you're usually 10 steps ahead of us, to be honest. And I put myself, I'm a follower. I want to follow you. Where you're going, I want to go there too. And I think that being that visionary and kind of like stretching us and just taking us to the next step, I really appreciate that about you. And also it's super annoying, right? Because I'm still trying to over here. I'm still just trying to fix these things. And then I'm like, I'm supposed to be there. It's super difficult, to actually put that into action. I have to say, it is difficult.
Yeah. But then I'm also like, sometimes I think the visionary to me, as you are explaining it, is not visionary. Because what I try to do, and we have done when we have, or I have previously led diversity and inclusion, and we have worked as a team with that. We have had resource groups and a lot of people, of course, contributing to that agenda. But then let's have the end in mind when we now do it concrete. So instead of doing women's clubs and gay clubs and so on, and clubs for the minorities, we made a diversity resource group that covers the whole scope. So everybody was invited on the topic. So if you're engaged in making more people feel a belonging and inclusion, you're invited to that resource group, not because of your color of your skin or what you have between your legs.
Yeah.
And then we mirror the society that we want to live in with that everybody's included, both the majority and taking an extra care of the minorities that are discriminated and are not living as good as the fortunate majority, basically. Yeah. But everyone needs to come together, because what I realized working a lot with diversity and inclusion, it felt like it was this minority versus the majority. It was this minority versus that. It was white versus different colors. And it was like men 50 plus is the worst kind of devil in disguise. Like you shouldn't even talk to them or be with them. And then it kind of broke my inclusive heart a bit, because we're talking about us versus them so much when we should just talk about one big us.
And I do think that's so interesting that you put the spotlight on that, because I think the intention is definitely not to exclude, right? The intention is that everyone should feel part, and then we identify the ones who we feel like fall outside and we want to include them. So hence we put the special headlight focus on that group. And then let's put you in the spotlight and get you in. And you're like, whoa, I didn't really ask to be in the spotlight. I just wanted to be included, right? And I do think in that, and in preparing for this, I did think a lot about that part, the exclusion. Because why do we exclude? So, and I'm not back to, because you are, you have a different point of view on certain groups of people. But I think that we don't have the tools always to know how to include everyone, right? Because I think sometimes that is almost too broad for us. So we need to have some kind of system, and me talking about, being very organized, having a system in my brain to put okay, you are in this group. That feels good. Okay, now I know where you are. And you are in this group. And you are in this group. And that gives me the tool to make sense of the world, right? Because otherwise it's just chaos. And then I use that same framework when I want to do inclusion, instead of just forget about those categories and open up and say, I want everybody who's invited, who wants to be part of this. I want everybody to be part of it. So I totally get that thinking. And I think we just need to say that many times so that we start thinking that way, because that's how we change behavior, by being conscious of it and then saying it and then thinking about how we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, I think that's really difficult with diversity and inclusion, because it feels like even the organizations that works with the inclusion, they don't even want to partner up, because I'm going to be the winner in this game, or I fight for women, I fight for other minorities. And then what is the end game? Did somebody forget to send the memo about the end game? Because
happy life, what are we trying to get to?
And then I see that different people, if I would hire a lot of diversity now, I have a lot of women who's both inclusive, but I also have a lot of women who just shut the ceiling after them or the door. And I also have that with minorities. So what I would want is more people that are inclusive and
regardless.
Yeah. Because then we will foster more of them, not just pointing at that person because it looks different or are different.
So is it more than about behaviors of people rather than, the category of where you belong? Because I can talk from my own experience, right? So I am definitely, by definition, always, I would call it the odd one out, but I love that, right? So I don't mind. It's usually me, and I grew up in, a system, corporate system, let's call it. I've worked for 25 years. And most of my time I spent it in professional services. So in professional organizations, it's been definitely male dominated, and I've been the odd one out. It's like 10 men in a suit, and then there's Sirine in pink, and I'm like, woohoo, over here, yay. And that's needed, right? But that's just a kind of symptom of the kind of the system. And I think that how can we actually get to that point where I'm not the odd one out, and the men in suit are not the odd one out neither, because I don't want to alienate them neither. I don't want white men pushing 40, 50, 60 to feel like they're not included and we don't need them anymore because they've just, they've been there so long. We don't need them anymore. Or young men, because we focus so much about young women and getting young women to stay in, and how to have families, not just young women, but also men. But how do we not exclude them and include everybody in that kind of corporate environment that that's already kind of existing, right?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's two parts. Yeah. It's one, individuals like yourself, daring to be their authentic, brilliant self. So if you exaggerate that, you will create a deep open space for others to also be more themselves. Yes. I can almost bet that the 10 male, white suited guys around you, they don't all want to wear that suit every day. They do it to fit in. They do it because it's over time built a culture, a dress code, and so on. So in your kind of type of industry, I would say, let's cut this dress code with all wearing suits every single day.
And I think people stopped wearing suits a lot. It's just a metaphor.
Yeah, not enough yet. Not enough yet. And then it's about, from a company perspective, to actually create a psychological safety. Yes. To let people be who they are. I remember I've had some discussions with several companies, but we need a dress policy. No, you don't. We need a certain way of talking. No, you don't. We need our job ads in local language. No, you don't, for 90% of your positions. Like, you have so many false assumptions of yourselves and what you need in order to get the clients and so on. The clients are modern. The clients are up to date. The clients are living in the modern society. We're just stuck in the Stone Age. So let's also refresh and modernize our minds.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're going there. And I think we have come a long way in professional, and I'll talk now about professional services as a very kind of wide variety of groups. But in companies who spend time and effort and resources on thinking about both their strategy and where they want to go and how their employer brand works and who they want to attract and retain, etc. I think we've come a long way in understanding how important the psychological safety is in order to perform, right? Because first and foremost, when you ask, why are we doing this and what's the end game? It's for all of us to have a happier life, frankly. I keep it simple, to be happy. If you're happy at work and you're happy at home, and it's usually, it's not either or, you have to be happy both places, then you are going to be a better performer. And we're going to be able to solve these problems that we have and we need to solve, like saving the world, the climate, all the challenges we have with building resilience and, facing all the uncertainty that we're facing. We can do that. I think we have the capability, and we need people to be at their best. And how can they be at their best? And I think we need to ask people too, like you're doing, like the resourcing groups. Ask them, and people will say different things, right? I have a different need than you and the other person, and maybe I as a company cannot cater to everyone, but I can at least cater to the majority. And like you say, remove the bias of what I think you need, but actually do what you need. Maybe it's moved on. It's not about, the things that we thought 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
And that brings me, maybe because I like your fire, and I just want to, if you turn it around a bit, what is the things that really annoys you in today's society or a workplace or
people in general?
Yeah, maybe people in general annoys me.
I don't know. Or people,
no, I'm just kidding.
I know. No, people don't annoy me, but I do think that I'm a yes person, right? I'm positive, I'm enthusiastic, I want to do things, I want to solve problems. I feel at my best when I can actually help somebody solve a problem. And I figured that's kind of who I am. That's what makes me happy, seriously. It doesn't have to be a big problem, could be very small, could be very big, but if I get to contribute. So what annoys me is when people just see barriers. Like you look at me and you say, Sirine, I don't like, that you're going in the direction of of giving me some kind of constraints that we are, we can't do it because we don't have the money, for instance. But I think that, overcoming barriers and trying to turn that glass from half empty to half full, and just being, okay, so what can we do? See opportunities. So people who annoy me the most are people who have shut down before they even tried. They're like, yeah, but we do this, and we've done this, and even if they want to be looking forward and be innovative, they're not wired in that way. So I find that probably the most annoying are people who say no all the time.
Yeah. And then I would try to challenge that. What do you say to people who find people like you annoying, which always says, yes, and I want everybody to be happy.
And be happy. And I'm definitely not just happy all the time, but I do think that I am solutions oriented. And I think I probably annoy lots of people because I talk so much. Right? And I want to get back to that, because I think that when we talk about being a generative leader, and, if you want to get more heart into your leadership, if that's your aim, then you need to be a great listener, right? And you need to actually be able to see people and empathize with people. And you have to be able to do that at the same time as you talk, if you are a talker like me. So I think people who see me, they will sometimes think it's a lot of Sirine, she's a lot. And I enjoy that. I am that person, so I can't be anybody else. I won't change. I'm the person I am. And I think that's a strength in certain, in certain settings. You need a Sirine, somebody who's there, an extrovert, and who dare to say things that maybe others will be more reserved to say. And then you need to pair me with other people so that we get diversity, because everybody cannot be that way.
But I think that's really cool too, because what I feel in today's society is that everybody is given feedback to become a great average. So if you speak a lot, you should listen more. If you are too engaged, you should calm down. Then everybody becomes the shitty average, and that's no one. And then what's the uniqueness or diversity in that? So I definitely think you have a really good approach when you say that, I need to grow myself and me and develop myself. Of course, you can become a better version of yourself, but you shouldn't lose yourself on the way. I think that's really beautiful. But then touching upon, since you say you're not happy all the time, what do you really find meaning of in your darkest moments?
Now, I think, I've been through a tough period of my life in the recent year and a half. I was thinking about, I've kind of come to the stage in life where you're halfway through your career, which I'm grateful for, because I worked for 25 years. I want to work for another 25 years. I'm happy with that. But then you start asking yourself the big questions. What are you going to get up in the morning for? And why are you doing this? And, what's meaningful to me, to give me the purpose. And I figured that, in those moments, the close relations that I have built with people, all the support system that I have around me is what has kind of both kept me mentally going, but also kept me going if I needed to reach out to somebody. And I think Chris, that, I don't necessarily always need to reach out to somebody, but I want to know that people are there. And that goes for a professional network, that you feel you can contribute from a kind of content and feel you contribute with meanings and your subject matter expertise, but just as much, on your personal relationships and people who are around you. Feeling that you built that network and stability, which is a foundation, is for me 100% determination of, determines whether I'm happy or not. Because I feel if I don't have that, I have myself, that's great. But I'm actually, I'm a result of all the people around me, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good sum up that maybe I also forgot a bit in big parts of my life. I thought it was a single man's game. But then I just wondered, why are some people in my network really excelling and look like they're even thriving when they have a lot to do, or even more speed, more impact? And then like, of course, you can read books about that as well. But the common denominator is that they have it takes a village.
Yeah,
basically. And I was just many times fighting for myself, didn't have the safety in the village. And I was like trying to just climb up and get myself out of the shitty mess that life have served me. And now the latest year is also being able to actually have energy and time and will to actually create that village as well. And I see it's so much easier to do everything else.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think that giving back feeling, that people have told me about this for years, you know, the older you get, the more you feel like you want to give back. But I actually find that to be true. You know, I'm in my 50s. I think that I have a much stronger sense of wanting to contribute. And that's how I feel giving back. What can I give back? What is my superpower? My superpower is to hone in on the people elements. I can help people develop. I can give people career advice. I can help coach people. I can give you a sense of direction in you know what you're doing, because I have a lot of life experience, right? And I should spend my time doing that, because that gives me meaning, and hence that also gives somebody else meaning, I think, instead of trying to say, well, I'm going to, let's say, drain the oceans for plastic. I can't do that, because that doesn't get me up in the morning, but it gets me up in the morning to motivate the people who need to do that and who knows how to do that, so that we get to do that. But I can do the people part. And that's, you know, how you contribute.
Good. And I think we're going to end there. So basically the conclusion now is build your tribe and then also focus on giving back, and life will have much more meaning to you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sirine. I know we could talk for hours, so maybe it's going to be another episode further down the road, but thank you for joining.
I really appreciated you inviting me, Chris, and I know we can talk for hours, and there are lots more themes and topics that we could explore. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
And thank you to all the listeners out there to the videocast, A Regenerative Future, where we invite inspiring guests who all have in common that they act to create a more thriving world for all of us. Thank you, and until next time, see you and goodbye.